Hi everyone, I'm Zach Reinhardt, and I'm back with a new Japanese EP wrap-up video. This is a series I do just whenever I have some EPs I want to talk about that I don't want to dedicate a full review to. So I just kind of pick three or four of them and talk about them in quick succession here in a short little video. And starting us off for this video is the new Quruli EP or mini album or whatever. Make sure I get this right. Kohaku iro no machi, Shanghai gai no asa. Quruli is an old band, it's been around for a long time. They have a pretty big following, they're a pretty big name, and that's because they put out some pretty good records in the earlier part of their career. But they've really kind of fallen off the list of bands that are making good music for me recently. Their last album, The Pier, I hated it. It was, I think, the worst album I heard that year. And then, meanwhile, B-Hype gave it the number 2 spot on their best Japanese albums of the year. So, what do I know? But yeah, I have not enjoyed a Quruli project in quite a while. And unfortunately, this new EP is no exception. I mean, the title track is all right, which is incredibly surprising considering it's like a straight up hip hop track with like some R&B mixed in, which I did not expect to work as well as it did. But surprisingly, it's not the worst track I've heard all year. The electric piano on it is pretty smooth. The rhythm section is very tight, and it has a really full sound to it, despite how kind of clean and processed everything sounds. It does sound pretty full, and it actually does have some soul to it. It sounds pretty smooth. The chorus is surprisingly decent and catchy, and the rap verses don't make me want to kill myself. So overall, this is the best Quruli track I've heard in a while. But sadly, the rest of this mini album does not live up to the same amount of okayness as the title track. With the exception of the song Chamber Music from Desert, which is a pretty decently written little instrumental track, every other song on here is incredibly just boring and lifeless, and there's really nothing interesting to listen to. There's a couple acoustic tracks that are kind of ballady, and they're just incredibly boring. There's no like musical intrigue in any of these tracks. The production is lifeless. Some of these instruments don't even sound like there's a human playing them. And they even try to do like this garage rock track, and they've completely like missed the point of garage rock. The song tries to be kind of aggressive and kind of in your face, but the production is just so clean and so overly processed. And the instruments have like no bite or aggression to them. And the vocals, while they try to get a little raspy and kind of loud at times, are ultimately just passionless. The song tries to be cool and hip, and it just comes off as some sort of like sleazy corporate guy in a suit trying to trick me into something. I don't know. It feels like an advertisement almost. But, I mean, Quruli has a pretty big following. They're still a big name, and people still seem to like their stuff. I seem to be kind of the odd man out on this band, but you know, what can you do? But yeah, if you're into Quruli's more recent stuff, you might find something to enjoy here, but I thought it was horrible. But moving on from that, we have the new Denims mini album, Iggy and Pops. Denims are a 4-piece indie rock band that is honestly pretty typical. They don't really have any bad songs, but they don't really have any like really great songs, and they aren't doing anything super special. They aren't reinventing the wheel. They're kind of just doing the typical Japanese indie rock sound that's popular right now, and they're doing it well, but they aren't pushing it forward in any way. This album has very clean production, but a surprisingly full sound to it. The choruses are catchy. You can definitely dance to this stuff. It's pretty upbeat. It's pretty fast-paced as well. And it's decent dumb fun, but there's nothing super special about it. But if you're into stuff like Lady Flash and Dayglow, or maybe even like Never Young Beach, or the Homecomings maybe, if you're into these bands, this will be enjoyable for you, but it's stuff you've probably already heard. Then, moving on from that, we've got the new Ninja Government EP, which is possibly my favorite noise album of the year. I think this band is a three-piece, though I should really double-check before I make my reviews, but we're already in the video, so we're just going to go with that. But they have somebody doing like electronics and sampling and stuff. Then they have a guitar player and a trumpet player. And this album combines like hardcore techno and speedcore with like free jazz and kind of like Captain Beefheart-esque jerky guitar improv. And then it just kind of smears that all with a big layer of noise and just nonsense. Everything is constantly peaking. Everything is constantly distorted. Everything is way too loud. And this album is just so over the top and ridiculous and just kind of silly in how abrasive and noisy and ridiculous it is, that it's just a complete fucking mess. But it kind of just stumbles through all of this with such kind of confidence and swagger that I can't help but like take it seriously and think, well, maybe these guys have something. There are pitched up, manipulated vocal samples and samples of classical music and video game music in the background, and you get these like break beats and kind of speedcore-esque like kind of kick drums, and it really is just so fucking dense that it's hard to parse. And then because that's not enough, over top of that you get these kind of squealing, screaming, distorted, echoey trumpet solos that seem to be kind of 70s free jazz inspired. They almost sound like they could come out of like a Peter Brötzmann album. And you also get these moments of like jerky, disjointed guitar improv that really sounds kind of Beefheart inspired, like I said. It's not distorted, but it's very lo-fi, and the guitars are just like really strange. They actually remind me quite a bit of my last album, which I'm not sure what to say about that. But yeah, if you were into really loud, abrasive, crazy music, if you're into noise, if you're into really hardcore stuff, I highly recommend this album. I don't know if I said its name. It's called Tobago in Mame. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce that, but we're going to go with that. I got too excited about the music and forgot to say its name. It doesn't take itself seriously at all, but at the same time, it's just so kind of confident in what it's doing that I can't help but treat it as something serious. And overall, it's just really kind of crazy, intense, nonsensical fun. Then, moving on to the final EP in this here wrap-up video, we have the Unholy EP by Mechanophone. Mechanophone is one of my favorite Japanese bands right now. I think they're just one of the best bands currently active in Japan. They put out a short 4-song EP back in, I think, 2014. That was great. It had some really good songwriting to it. It had great performances on all the instruments. But it was just really kind of hampered by its production. Sometimes things were just way too kind of piercing and high pitched, especially some of the noisier guitar moments. And how rough it was, it made the kind of finer details of the album hard to appreciate at times. So I was really kind of hotly anticipating this new EP, really wanting to see what they would do with the production and see if they would really kind of refine their sound a bit more. And they did, and it all sounds great. The production is still rough, it's still a little lo-fi, but now it's not overpowering. It's more of an aesthetic choice, and I think they hit the sweet spot, really, with the production. These guys combine like noisy, feedback-ridden guitar noises from like older bands like Number Girl and stuff, with more modern kind of Japanese indie conventions along the lines of like Otori, or maybe even like a more toned down Panic Smile. And then they seem to draw some song structure influence from like classic prog rock. There's a lot of shifting parts and kind of different varied grooves throughout each song. There isn't really a clear like verse chorus song structure. They just kind of have like a few different parts for each song that they kind of cycle through that kind of vary in intensity and just like density of sound. There are moments on here where I almost feel like I'm listening to like a really weird idea for a Yes tribute band. But there are also moments that are much too aggressive and just kind of squealing with feedback and noise for that to be the case. They really kind of combine all their influences and different sounds that they draw from seamlessly, and their songs sound really original as a result. Like, there's not any band that sounds quite like Mechanophone does. If you are into like loud rock music, if you're into really cool song structure and songwriting stuff, if you're into just really good performances, like the drums are great on this thing, the guitars sound great, and there's some really cool riffs on here. If any of this sounds vaguely enticing to you, I really highly recommend this EP, and check out their prior EP. It's all just up on Bandcamp. It's really good. These guys are just a really great band, and they're doing some really cool stuff. But yeah, that's it for the EP wrap-up video. As usual, there are links in the description to check these guys out. I highly recommend you give all of this a little taste test at least, as there's definitely a lot of different kind of sounds coming out of Japan right now. And these 4 EPs are extremely different from one another. But I'll see you guys next week for a new review. And until then, peace.